Okay, we have another video discussion today about how the FCC can find you and fine you. There is a lot of misconception on this, and we're going to go over it today. The FCC can find you in some certain ways. They have tracking equipment and listening devices that can find you, but we're going to talk about, again, as always, why it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's start with this. You and your buddies are using ham radios or GMRS radios and you're not licensed at all. How can the FCC find you? They would have to be in your area and have deployed listening devices, meaning they do have devices that can track direction, where the signal's coming from, and they have ways of tracking you down. As stated before, they would have to be deployed and actively in an investigation. The FCC does not sit around with listening equipment deployed, listening for people who are violating ham radio rules. They just do not care. This is an overwhelming task for the FCC to deal with. Hundreds of millions of radios are sold on Amazon and elsewhere, and they simply do not have the resources to do this. But for today's discussion, we are going to talk about this a lot in the sense that an active investigation is going on. For the most part, when people get FCC violations, it is because they are transmitting from their home with a lot of power with a visible antenna sticking out around their house somewhere, meaning I can identify that there is a radio station there, and I can identify and see it. You have to be pushing a lot of power. That's where those sensors and the tracking equipment comes in. They can track you down to an address, and we're going to talk more about the address and where, and a station being established in a place to send a fine and or establish where this person is transmitting. So generally speaking, when these people get caught, they are in a location with a lot of power, with no license, transmitting and aggravating people, jumping on ham repeaters, jumping on GMRS repeaters with no license. Then those people have to file a complaint to the FCC. The FCC has maybe a 15 or 20% chance of even opening an investigation into looking into what you're doing. Then they are going to track your signal, and if you're dumb and you're transmitting from your house with an address, they are going to issue you a fine, a ticket, a letter, something in the mail telling you to stop, probably a warning first. In a lot of cases, what people do is they don't listen to the warnings and they just keep going and aggravating people and causing problems constantly from one location that is identifiable. So then the FCC can issue you a fine or a court summons or something to your house. The next thing I want to get into is handheld use. A lot of guys and stuff are worried about using a handheld and getting a fine. Well, I want you to ask yourself this. You and your buddies are hiking in the woods or LARPing or doing whatever, out and about. You're not even at home. And you're using this on simplex. So you're not on anyone's repeater and you're just talking back and forth on a single frequency somewhere in the ham space. VHF, UHF, doesn't matter. Where is the FCC going to send a letter or fine? Especially because you're just doing it for one day. You have left your home on a Tuesday or whatever day it is, doesn't matter, and you're using ham radio. Well, I want you to consider someone has to hear that on simplex. I don't know of any weirdos that are just sitting there scanning all simplex channels. I'm sure that there's a ham out there somewhere doing it. These people are very strange. But he would have to then, that ham who picked it up, this weirdo, would have to then file a complaint with the FCC. Well, consider the fact that you and your buddies are now gone. You're not there anymore. So even if an investigation were to start, you would be gone. They would be launching an investigation in this area and you're not there anymore. So it just doesn't really matter. Just in general, the footprint of a handheld radio is just smaller and less noticeable than using something with a big antenna sticking out of your house. You're obviously transmitting on radio frequencies with no license. Even if you were doing it constantly from your house with a handheld, I just want you to consider, like, what is the FCC going to do? Come knock on your door and tell them, tell you that they're going to search your house? It's like, dude, I'd get out of here. I don't come back with a warrant. I don't have a radio, thank you and goodbye would be the answer. That they don't really have any power to do that. I just want you to consider there's millions of these radios in existence. So even if the FCC got local law enforcement involved, what are they going to do? Search everyone in the neighborhood's home for a Baofeng radio? Like, what are you going to do? I'm just trying to point out how ridiculous it would be for somebody to actually get in trouble for using a ham radio. Okay, this is a real hypothetical here, but let's say that there is these recording devices and direction finding radio, RF signal devices already set up all around the country. And anytime someone keyed up on ham radio, the FCC would record it and they would realize, what's going on. And it's instantly transmitted back. I mean, this is ridiculous talk at this point. We're going to do it though. They would have an idea of where the radio transmissions are coming from, yes, but then they would have to identify you, the person on that radio. Again, keep in mind, there's millions of these radios floating around the United States and elsewhere. They would have to have voice recognition software to recognize your voice over the airwaves and then have a database of everyone's voice in the United States. And then they would have to find your address and track you down and then knock on your door and then, I don't know, arrest you, give you a fine, send you a letter, whatever. Just to find you would be such a task for the government to get into if they were going to do any kind of this investigation. One thing I want to point out, and man, I'm going to get it for this one, encryption on DMR radios is available on almost every DMR radio that exists in the DMR radio world. You can put encryption on and nobody's going to hear your voice, not even the FCC. Before you get angry with me pointing this out, contact the companies who actually make these radios because they are the ones making them capable of encryption. And almost all DMR radios are capable of encryption. So we know it's illegal. We get it. I'm not a radio manufacturer. I simply am just a radio user and a YouTuber. Before I close this video out, I want to talk about the radios actually IDing themselves. I have seen this from people who claim to be ham radio operators, saying that the radios themselves, like your cheap Chinese radio, will ID itself and ID you. This is not true, especially for analog radios. All of your analog radios that you use do have a menu option in them that is called Radio ID, and you can turn it on or off. This has to do with you setting up a radio ID inside of the radio, and we're going to do a demo on this probably right here. Okay, this is an example of a PTT ID shown here, PTT ID. So what we're going to do is I went into Chirp and put a PTT ID in here. I'm trying to remember what the numbers were, but it was just made up. It's just totally made up. So this radio, when I key up on GMRS1 and let off, it's going to sound like that. That is the ID, and there's the ID number I put in. Can I get this to focus? 7755 is what I put in there. This is an app on my phone to record the DTMF tones, and it can read them. The radio is just going to hear it. Now, there is some radios that can hear and then show the DTMF tones on the screen. These cannot. It is possible, but again, made up number. It does not ID you. So the radio is ID'd by your DTMF tone, and you can turn it on or off. And it is simply just a number. And it doesn't mean anything to the FCC or radio enforcement or law enforcement or anything. It's just a number you can make up. It's not like Amazon is sending these radios out and identifying it to your order number. That is impossible. They're not doing it, and it's just not a reality. All right, let's talk about DMR, because I've had commenters say that the DMR radios do ID themselves with your ID number. Only if you do it. And you have to go on id.net, I'll put it up on the screen here, get an ID associated with your ham radio call sign, and then those numbers are connected and they can identify you, but you would have to put it in. Our radios that we sell and my radios that I use, even though I own and I have a real DMR ID, I don't ever use it. I put random IDs in there and they're not associated with anything. There's no way that the data goes out, but there's no way for anyone to know what it is or what it means. Okay, demo time. Let's do this. This is a DMR radio and this is a DMR radio. If you are searching and you have open scan mode open on these, it can listen to anything, and you could see this radio is going to identify this. I'm transmitting with this one. 577 Recon 2, and that is this radio's information that is input into it. Recon 2, 577. So the radios will ID themselves, but you have to do it. So transmit, and you'll see this 1001 radio 5, and that's this. So we've identified them, and they will transmit their data that you input. So if you input your real radio ID, your real DMR ID into these, they will identify you when you transmit. But if you're just like me, just make it up. If you're really, really dumb, you can go into your DMR ID inside the programming software, and you can name your radio your name. You know, you could type in, Andy Banks or whatever, whoever name you want in there. And yes, your radio would ID you, but you would be setting it up to identify you. They don't come like that. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember, I'm not telling you to break any laws or condone any illegal activity. I think it's a good idea to get your ham radio license and your GMRS license, but I'm just trying to break up some of the extreme misinformation that hams actually put out on the internet. If you have a problem with me or this video, please do not send me an anonymous email claiming that I'm going to get everyone in trouble and that I cannot even reply to. Just leave it in the comments below. The most ridiculous comments always are pinned here. So whenever someone has like really crazy misinformation, I'll actually pin it just because it's funny. Anyways, thanks for watching. I do not make the rules or enforce them, and I am not a lawyer. We'll see you in the next video.